Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting on October 9, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing afterwards, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have a couple of sad announcements to announce. If you won't mind, we're going to ask you for a moment of silence for Gordon Bates and Hal Norton, who are both residents of Abington. If I could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Gordon Bates, age 84, a lifelong resident of Abington, recently passed away. Gordon graduated from Abington High School in 1952 and served as the class president for 4 years and received 12 varsity letters in 3 sports. Gordon excelled as a baseball pitcher and was drafted by the Boston Braves and was offered a contract by the Philadelphia Phillies. He served in the U.S. Army from 1954 to 1956 and then taught science for 34 years at the Hingham Public Schools. Gordon served his community as a member of the Abington Town Building Committee, the Abington Fire Department as an on-call firefighter, and a volunteer at the Abington Food Pantry. Gordon was honored at the Abington High School Alumni Association Awards in 2010, Abington High School Athletic Hall of Fame induction in 2015, and the Abington Best designation from the Board of Selectmen in 2018. Gordon will be deeply missed by his loving family and many friends. Hal Norton, age 77, resident of Abington, passed away recently. Hal was a U.S. veteran who proudly served the 82nd Airborne Division from 1959 to 1961 and was stationed in Germany. Hal was a Massachusetts State Bank examiner for 32 years and an avid outdoorsman who enjoyed hunting and derived much peace and enjoyment from nature. As an Abington resident for 33 years, he was active as a civic and town commissioner of boards, including the Abington Conservation Commission, Abington Board of Health, and Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee. Hal will be deeply missed by his loving family and many friends. Thank you very much.
Hal also served on the trustees of Veterans Memorial. I had the pleasure of serving with him on the Board of Health. He's a good guy.
Thank you very much, Ken. I'm going to have some public announcements. Jim, do you have a public announcement?
I do. The Abington Police Department has announced that the hours for trick-or-treat in the town of Abington on Halloween are from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The Abington Police Department encourages residents to shut off outside lights after 8 p.m. to reinforce those hours that were established with safety in mind. Parents should also make sure their children are aware of the candy deadline in advance. All parents should have a discussion with their children about respecting other people's property and, most importantly, adhering to the following safety tips. Adults should accompany young children. Older children should trick-or-treat in a group of at least 3 or more. Parents should clearly know the trick-or-treat route that their children will be taking. Children should only trick-or-treat in familiar and well-lit neighborhoods. Children should wear costumes that are light-colored or garbed with reflectors. Children should not wear masks or use makeup that interferes with proper vision or hearing. Children should carry flashlights with new batteries or glow sticks. Children should not carry hard plastic or wood props such as daggers or swords. Substitute them with foam rubber, which is soft and flexible. Adults and children should watch for traffic at all times, even on the side streets. Remember that Halloween is on a Wednesday night this year. Motorists should drive well below the speed limit up to an hour before and after the posted trick-or-treat hours. Trick-or-treaters should go to all the houses on one side of the street before they cross the street to the houses on the other side. Do not zigzag back and forth. Trick-or-treaters should stay on the sidewalks, driveways, and walkways to avoid ruts or holes on the lawn. Trick-or-treaters should not accept unwrapped or unpackaged candy. Parents should inspect all candy before anything is eaten. Parents should also be aware that the Abington Police Department has requested that Abington store owners not sell any of the following products to children under the age of 18 from October 26th until November 1st. And those items are spray paint, eggs, soap, shaving cream, and toilet paper.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tim, do you have anything?
I have 2, please. On Saturday, October 20th, St. Bridget's PTO will be hosting their 5th annual Freaky Family Fun Run. That is it's a 5K run or 1.5 mile walk at 9 a.m. preceded by a 8:45 a.m. kids run. Costumes are encouraged. There'll be prizes for the top 3 runners in many age groups. After the race, there'll be a fall family festival with kids activities, free food, DJ, haunted house, and lots of raffles. A portion of the proceeds will go to the 21 Fund, a local nonprofit set up in memory of Joey Glenn to help those in our immediate community during times of need. You can register online at active.com or in person on Friday, October 19th from 2 to 7 at the Parish Hall, or on race day starting at 7:30 a.m. And one other one, the Abington Garden Club will meet on Monday, October 15th, 2018 at the Parish Hall of the United Church of Christ, 10 Bedford Street in Abington. The program will be Green Alternatives to Foam, presented by Mary Beth Hayes. A luncheon will be served at 12, followed by the presentation at 1. The public and new members are invited to attend.
Any birthdays, Tim?
No,
Thank you, Tim.
not this week.
Ken, do you have?
I do, there's quite a chock full of schedule at the library, starting with tomorrow night. This one I'm actually planning on attending. This sounds like a neat one. I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan. And an evening with a Master of Suspense hosted by local film buff Frank Mendoza. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the library. Thursday, October 18th, Ted Reinstein from Chronicle TV show is going to discuss his recent book, New England's General Stores, Exploring an American Classic. He will be there 7 p.m. on Thursday, October 18th. If you're planning on attending that, I've been to one of his shows there, and I will tell you, it only seats 75 people and it fills up quick. So if you're planning on going, get there early for that one. And lastly, for the library, on Saturday, October 20th, there are 2 events. 11 a.m. author Carol La Liberté and illustrator Jim Walsh will present their new book, Sophie's Clock, The Tale of a Flower Fairy and Her Fairy Mouse. I think that Tom would like that one. And at 3 p.m., Abington resident and author Colin McMahon will speak about his new novel, The Dream Catchers. Colin's book is intended for teens and adults. The story poses the question, where do we go when we dream? Those are 2 events. And lastly, this is one of the Abington Celebrates big weekends coming up. This is the Oktoberfest. This is our 3rd annual. There were events all weekend long, starting with Friday night, then Saturday, all day Saturday and Sunday. Quickly, I'm just going to run them down real quick because we have a lot of announcements tonight. But Friday is a Griffin's Dairy dedication at 5:30 at Griffin's Dairy. Saturday starts with the October Marketplace, and these are all events basically that have happened the last 2 years, and they've been very successful. There's a car show at Lowe's by Troop 41. This year, we're adding a Dyer Library open house, which is kind of a neat thing, from 1 to 3. If anybody hasn't been to the Dyer Library, it's tough because the schedule is tough when they're open, but they're going to be open 1 to 3. So that's on Route 123. Not So Scary Woods by the Lions Club. They've been doing that for close to 10 years now. That's from 3 to 6, followed by a new event right there at Island Grove. Right after Not So Scary Woods is an outdoor family night sponsored by the HUD Foundation, which is one of my favorite movies, Hotel Transylvania. So that's free, and all these events are free. Sunday pancake breakfast hosted by the Lions Club at the Legion, 8 o'clock, 8:30 I should say, to 11. That's not free, but it's very, very reasonable. Then the big event, Oktoberfest Family Celebration, 12 to 4 at the Folio School Memorial Field, Legion Building. All kinds of free events, Joe's Crazy Critters, bouncy houses, games, hay rides. Also, at the same time, there'll be a Halloween canine costume contest, and this year they kind of have a cool thing behind the school. They're going to have the Frisbee dogs, which are always a neat thing, and the canine dogs from the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. There will also be a beer and food garden with a tent with the Double Eagle Oktoberfest German Band. And lastly, on Sunday night is the annual Abington Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. This year it's going to be catered at the new school. It's starting at 12:15 with a new school tour. That is, there is a dinner involved, so that's $25 a ticket. So hopefully we'll see you there this weekend. I will be wearing my lederhosen. I do have a spare set if the other selectmen would like to wear a set of lederhosen.
Thank you very much, Ken. Tom?
I nominate.
Okay, this Saturday, October 13th, there will be a blood drive at the Abington Knights of Columbus at 254 Hancock Street. This is sponsored by the Wampatuck Masonic Lodge and the Abington Knights of Columbus. It is from 7 in the morning till 12:30 in the afternoon. We do this every other month, just so everybody's aware if you can't make it this month. And we do serve a very, very good and hearty breakfast. So if you want to come up and donate blood, please do. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you. I just have one more from the Abington Public Library. 21 years of folding flag screening. The Abington Public Library is honored to host a screening of the documentary film 21 Years, A Folded Flag on Saturday, November 10th at 2 p.m. 50 years ago, the town of Abington not only lost a Vietnam War hero, but a young child lost his father before going missing in action during his classified mission with his special op group. Staff Sergeant Richard A. Fitz sent home his Green Beret and a voice recording with a truly special message for those he left behind. 21 years later, his remains were returned to his hometown with the regalia of a hero's welcome and a funeral where a folded flag was presented to his only son. Now, a half-century later, the soldier's story is told through the son's cathartic journey of discovery of who his father was. The film was produced by Rudy Childs and directed by Richard A. Fitz Jr. Please join us for this special event. And finally, I'd like to read a letter to the Abington Public Schools, which I am quite proud to be able to read. To Teresa Sullivan, PhD, for the principal of Abington Public Schools, from Peter Schaefer, Superintendent of Schools. Dear Dr. Sullivan, congratulations to the students, parents, guardians, faculty, staff, administration, obtaining the highly coveted United States Department of Education National Blue Ribbon School Award for Abington High School. Of the tens of thousands of United States high schools across the country, only a very small number are selected schools to be honored annually with this distinguished national award for excellence. This award validates the long hours of hard work and important work performed at Abington High School. It also signifies meaning to all of the dedicated professionals across the system from pre-K through 12. That's pre-K through 12. They are committed and they care deeply about our students' success. I am very proud of the incredible achievement which distinguishes Abington High School as an exemplary achievement gap closing school nationally. Most of all, I'm happy and proud of the students we serve. Abington is clearly providing them with the best possible environment for learning and preparation for the challenges of life after high school and as successful individuals in our society. I thought that was a very poignant award for the town of Abington. At this time, I'd like to introduce to the board Jason T. Picard and ask him to come up and speak to us, please. He's a Staff Sergeant in the United States Army. You have his card in front of you.
Good evening. Selectmen, good evening, sir. Selectmen, Mr. Administrator, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. As stated, I am Staff Sergeant Jason Picard. I have been in the Army 11 years. I currently recruit from the Quincy Army Recruiting Station. I've been recruiting in Massachusetts for 1 year now. I too come from a small town. That small town is located in South Carolina, but I can also appreciate the intricacies of living in a small town. However, I'm not here tonight in my role as a recruiter, but rather as an ambassador of the United States Army to your community. To that end, I am here tonight, to shortly say it, to offer the professional services of the Quincy Army Recruiting Station to your community. Those services may be offered in the way of ceremonies, parades, guides, and establishing routes for road races, and this is not a fully comprehensive list. There are 9 recruiters at the Quincy Army Recruiting Station, all of which have no less than 10 years time in service. We are no younger than 29 years of age and have each served time in and out of this country. We each have a plethora of experiences we would like to we are able to provide to your community. To this end, I have already established a relationship with your local Veterans Coordinator, and I am working through coordinating events through them. It's my hope to establish a positive relationship with your community, and it's my hope that that starts tonight with this meeting, sir.
Okay.
That is all.
Thank you. One second. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Please. Yes, sir.
If we have a touch-a-truck event, would you be able to bring a tank? No, I'm serious.
I'll touch it.
Tank? No. I could probably get just about Anything that does not have tracks, I could probably get, sir.
Excellent. All right, I'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. You have my card?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else?
Do you have an honor guard?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an honor guard?
An honored guard. Each of the recruiters in my station, as well as within the Boston, we belong to the Boston Recruiting Company, would be able to provide an honor guard, and myself would be on that, an honored or color guard, and there is a difference.
Right,
Myself would be, I would be on that team.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. If it is acceptable, I'd like to open questions to the community.
Anyone in the community have any questions for Staff Sergeant?
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have a public appointment, 635 Dana George and Patrick Eddy, 10th District Brewing Company, request for common particular license. Are they in the audience? No, I don't recognize them at all.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Come back.
Which one are you?
I'm Dana George, this is Patrick Eddy.
Thank you.
As you can tell, he's the boss.
He deflects to you, I understand that. Make him talk first, that's all. What can we do for you?
Essentially, that's what we're looking for. Our understanding is that a common vic license enables us to serve food to patrons that are sitting or that are at our establishment. We are nowhere near ready to serve food yet. It's in the progress as far as what we're looking to do. We've connected with a gentleman who makes and sells pretzels, where we would potentially either reheat. He also has prepackaged pretzels, almost like a bag of chips, that we would sell at our facility. Again, our understanding of talking with the health department, it's a multi-step process, serve safe, allergy safe, et cetera. We're still a little in the dark with that, but after talking with Dory, this is kind of the first step to get that approval. Is that correct?
Any questions from the board? Nope. So basically, you're gonna start with serving hot pretzels?
We may even start with just prepackaged pretzels. Again, we're still learning. It's kind of a learning process here as far as what we need to get approved for. I've talked with Marty in the health department briefly, and he's given us kind of a brief synopsis of what we'll need to do. So this is, again, the first step.
Okay, and the hours of food service is Saturday and Sunday only?
It would be, honestly, sorry, I don't have an answer for that. I would say anytime we're open. We're open Wednesday through Sunday. More than likely, it will be a weekend thing. With that being said, if it is prepackaged items, we would probably have them at the brewery on a regular basis.
Okay.
But pretzels, heating pretzels up, that would be a weekend thing, for sure.
Okay.
I just, you specifically requested 12 to 8 only on Saturday. That's what your application says. So if the intent is to...
In
yeah,
Sunday.
If the intent is, I'm sorry, in Sunday. So if the intent is for weekdays too, you'd have to amend this through the Board of Selectmen too. So
That's probably an error on my part.
Okay, well, that's why
There was a repetitive license application, but that's fine.
So, well,
We're
are you-
fine with that for now.
Okay, well, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
If you
Yep.
wanted weekdays,
Yep.
now would be the time to make that request, that's all.
That might have been an oversight on my part. My apologies.
Rick, can we amend that now so they don't have to come
Yeah.
back?
Yes, you can. That's
Might
why I
wanna
want
do
to.
that now.
Nothing personal, I'm sick of seeing these guys.
I'm not. I'm not sick of seeing you at all. You can come in front of us anytime you want. Keep us busy.
So if it could be during hours of operation, that would be great.
What are the hours of operation?
So-
Monday through Friday?
Wednesday, 4 to 8, Thursday and Friday, 4 to 9, and then the hours posted on the application, Saturday, 12 to 8, Sunday, 12 to 5.
Wednesday, 4 to 8, Thursday and Friday, what?
So do I need to go through an amended vote, or we haven't voted at all?
No, you haven't voted yet, so.
So we're gonna change the,
Motion
the motion will change to read proposed hours of Wednesday 4 to 8, Thursday, Friday 4 to 9, Saturday 12 to 8, and for Sunday 12 to 5.
And I'll make that motion.
And Friday for, you forgot for Friday, right?
4 to 9, Friday.
Thursday and Friday are 4 to 9.
Correct.
I will second his motion.
Motion and second. Anything further to say on that, Mr. Coyle?
Now, currently, you guys have is it a farmer's pour permit, is that what it's called?
Farmer Series pouring permit, yes.
Now, does that Is this a separate thing altogether? They can get that on top of this?
Yes,
This is,
this is a standalone.
right.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to having this other than serving food?
That's the only benefit.
Okay.
While being seated, eating food is the only basis for this license.
If I wanted to stand there at the bar and have food, I could, though, right?
Exactly.
You really need to sit.
I'd like to see,
There's no seats at the bar.
You want to be in compliance.
And the seating capacity is left blank. Do you have an estimate about what your seating capacity is, or is that on another permit maybe or something, do you know? It's just something that's left blank on the
Or
application.
that'd be on the license, yeah.
Anyone else? So I have a motion and second to approve the common particular license for the 10th District Brewery with hours of service for food operations of Wednesday 4 to 8, Thursday, Friday 4 to 9, Saturday 12 to 8, and Sunday 12 to 5.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, you may.
You mentioned pretzels. If you wanted to, I mean, I know you have food outside, when the different food vendors come in. If you wanted to cook other things inside, would they have to, are they only permitted to do, they can do whatever they want now? Correct?
yes, as long as it's in compliance with any Board of Health
Okay.
regulations.
All right,
yes.
I just wanted to make sure they weren't locked into just pretzels, because,
Right.
I might want a hot dog or something.
Yeah.
you know.
Just before the board votes, could either Rick or Dory explain what a common particular license is?
I'd be happy to. It's a license that dates way back. It's still on the books, and it just means that if you had an establishment that serves food like a convenience store, you don't need one because you don't go in and sit and eat. You can just take food out. But anytime you enter a premise and you sit and you eat, the state of Massachusetts requires the common victula.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor of approving the common particular license, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, the ayes have it. Congratulations, gentlemen, and good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
5-0. Is there anyone in the public comment? Is anyone out there want to address the board at all in public comment? Feel free to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. I would ask Leanne Adams, our town clerk, to come up and give us just a quick overview of the early voting and the voting that's going on in the town in the future. Against her will, but I've asked her to do it anyhow.
Let me see, early voting starts October 22nd, and it runs through to November 2nd. Each city and town clerk can decide upon hours that would be best for them, the office community, and we're going with the same hours that we used for the presidential, which are Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 7, and Friday will be here 8:30 to 12:30. Saturday, October 27th, will be here from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m.
Excellent.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Does anyone have any questions for Leanne?
I just have a comment.
Ken?
In a day where town hall closes at noontime on Fridays and the doors lock at 4:30 or whatnot, I think it's very impressive that you and your staff are able to stay open till 7 and Saturdays too, so I commend you and your group.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? I just want to quickly go over the voting.
Put this on the website, please?
It's already up.
Wow.
She's efficient, man.
I just commented.
I asked for that, and she says it's already there. I said,
Already there.
she doesn't want to address it, but it's already there, so. Upcoming elections in the town is Saturday, April 27th, 2019, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, Saturday, April 25th, 2020, and Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Are we looking at moving to Emerald Hall?
Are we looking to, I'm sorry,
To move the vote from the high school to some other venue?
possibly,
So that's a proposal to be possibly,
yes. It would
Moving
be
the vote.
for 2020.
okay. So we did listen to the last election, and we are taking concerns and considerations at looking at
that, yes.
what's possible the future will behold for us,
The
so.
election in November shouldn't be too bad, because we have early voting, so that gives everyone the opportunity to come in. And we have a pretty good schedule for that, and there will be no school that day.
So there is no school at midterm elections in November. Any other questions for Leanne? Come on, anyone? Ken?
I would just like the board to really work on making sure that all elections are held at the high school from now on. One place. I mean, you can't go the rest of this year and next year and vote at the high school and then, oh, go, this election's gonna be here. I mean, we know that those 2 days, you know, somehow we have to close the school or whatnot, and I think we work together. The school committee and department has a great relationship with the town manager and our board. I think that we can plan far enough ahead. There's enough, you know, they have enough days that they should be able to take off for those
Okay.
2 days. That's March 3rd, 2020, and we have a year and a half notice, so, I mean, it's confusing. That didn't work out with the school being open on a busy election. Town elections are on Saturday, so it's a new point that, you know, there's no one in there, so I would really like to see the new school building our voting destination for the future from now on.
Thank you, Ken. Anything else for Leanne? Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome very much.
Appreciate the update. Next thing on our agenda is the Chapter 61 Notice of Intent to Sale or for other use at 62 Linwood Street to vote whether or not to exercise the right of first refusal for purchase. This was previously discussed by the board. Has anyone approached us as far as,
No, we did send out a letter to all boards and committees, and nobody expressed an interest in, or advised that the town should be pursuing this property.
so we have, no one has shown any interest in the property. So I'd like the board to consider taking a motion to, is it pass over or the option to,
I would make a motion that we exercise the right of first refusal to purchase the 4 lots on Linwood Street.
so motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds it. Is there anything further to say on it, gentlemen, anyone?
Just
If not,
just for the record, to not exercise the right of first refusal, correct? Yeah, all right.
all in favor of, correct me if I'm wrong, not
Not exercise.
exercise
For
our,
not exercising.
we're all out for not exercising our right of first refusal for the property. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, it's unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Can I go back to what we talked about before that, with the town elections?
Yes, sir?
Can we, I mean, I'd like the board maybe take a, you know, maybe discuss it a little bit and see if there's a differing opinions, but I mean, if the board is in favor of making every effort to have voting at one location for the, you know, the immediate future, I think we should, you know, make that a vote.
I don't disagree with you, and I was hoping for the next meeting to have that on the discussion list based on the points made by many people from the first election at the high school, when the high school was open, and the issues that were raised by different parties about parking and access and,
Oh, you're actually, you are correct, we can't vote on this because it's not on the agenda.
correct.
We shouldn't even
So,
discuss it, actually, but,
It will be on the agenda at the next meeting.
And we can, we'll ask the school superintendent for his insight, too, for the next agenda.
thank you.
Thank you very much. The next thing on our list is to approve the minutes from September 10th, both the open and executive session. I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes. Does anyone second that?
I'll second that.
That's for the general minutes, Tom?
That is correct.
Motion to approve the second minutes. Tom has a motion, and Tim, anything further to say on that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous, 5-0. Executive session, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the executive session of September 10th, 2018?
I'll make that motion.
Tom makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Jim seconds. Anything further to say on that?
We have to hold until,
All matters are resolved.
thank you.
So the motion requires that we have to hold until all matters are resolved, but we can vote. I have a motion and second. Anything else to say? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5-0. Next on our list is to accept a gift from the Friends of the Council of Aging, which is a 10 by 14-foot shed. Where is that supposed to go?
It's going to go behind the Council on Aging building, I guess you'd say, east of the pickleball courts.
East of the pickleball courts.
Does that mean it's closer to the tracks or away from the track?
Away from the tracks.
There's an outhouse there now, isn't there? Isn't there a porta potty there, in that neck of the woods? I thought there was. I'm just asking, I just want to know.
I don't think there is.
I thought there was one up there. So
Maybe it was there for a reason,
I thought people
when they were playing.
playing pickleball could, you know.
So,
That's not the shed, just,
No, okay.
Yeah.
so we have a motion to accept the gift from the Friends of the Council of the Aging, a 10 by 14-foot shed that we placed at the,
behind the seniors.
beside the pickleball courts at the senior center.
That's the intent.
I'll make that motion.
Tom makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Jim seconds. Is there anything further to say on that motion? Ken,
Couple
please?
questions. Is this a new building, brand-new building?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the town will be responsible for upkeep of it once
Yes,
it's in
it
place?
is. Well, yes, and I think that was one of the questions that had come up is, you know, if the Friends of the COA wanted the shed, but they, having met with Suzanne and members of the Council on Aging, they had to understand that if it's on town property, it's town property. So therefore, they have to make the gift to the town for the town to accept it. The goal is primarily for storage for Friends of the COA and their equipment, some of their furniture and records, but essentially, it's town property, and I know that they're working with Suzanne to determine what's, you know, what the needs of the COA are in addition to the Friends, so.
Just want to make sure, we just passed a bylaw at town meeting about storage sheds. I just want to make sure that they follow all of the new proper procedure for that. I'm not sure, it has to have a foundation or cement blocks or something, or
They did get approval from the building
they
commissioner.
already have private.
It's a big shed, so it's gonna have to have footings, I think. Unless it's two buildings that put together. Because I get anything better than 8 by 8, you have to have footings on it, so. We have a motion and a second. Anything further to say on that? All in favor, say aye to accept the gift from the Friends of the Council of Aging, which is a 10 by 14-foot shed.
Aye.
Aye.
Against, opposed? It's unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much, Council of the Aging. Next in front of us is the approval of a one-day liquor license for the American Legion for October 14, 2018, from noon to 4 p.m. with the hours. This is for the Abington Celebrates October Festival. Do I have a motion to accept that, please?
I'll make a motion to accept that.
Jim makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Jim seconds it. Is there anything further to say on this motion?
I just state, I don't see it in here, but that's 12 to 4.
12 to 4.
12 to 4, and it's going to be manned by all the bartenders from the American Legion, who are all tip certified and trained.
Okay.
And there will be a special pouring of District 10 beer, 10th District beer. Just wanted to make that clear, too.
Okay.
And there will be pretzels there, but probably not District 10's pretzels. So.
Okay. So I have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very much. The next thing on our agenda is a discussion on Hancock Street speed limit. It was brought to our attention that once again there was an issue on Hancock Street with speeding cars. Can you fill me in on what has taken place so far as the investigation by the state on this, please?
Yes, many months ago, actually, probably before the turn of the year, there was a complaint from a resident on Hancock Street as to the current traffic and the speeds that people were going. The process, you know, we can't just change a speed limit, a posted speed limit. There is a universal speed limit for roads in town of 30 miles per hour when there is not otherwise posted a speed limit. Speed limits have to be ultimately approved by the Department of Transportation, and in order for that to happen, a community has to go through an analysis to determine if these certain criteria are met. Obviously, we don't have a traffic engineering department, so we depend upon the services of Old Colony Planning Council to do the appropriate surveying and analysis. Having done that, Old Colony Planning Council, their traffic engineers determined that the current speed limit is appropriate under state guidelines, and that there's really no ability for the town to change that at this time. The only option that the town does have is to declare that it's a special safety zone, which would allow the town to post a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit basically from Rockland Street to Lincoln Street. That would be the only option that exists right now for lowering the speed limit, since it doesn't comply with state guidelines for lowering it otherwise. There is a permitting process to go to get a special speed zone in place too, but should the Board of Selectmen wish to do that, that's just it's not an onerous process that we would certainly pursue. The concern, obviously, is that, it's not just Hancock Street. As you all know, there's a lot of neighborhoods off of that road, and, I would think that the board would want to get more public input if indeed you were inclined to consider a special safety zone there.
And Rick, is that the only thing that we can do?
That's the only thing that the town can do.
Well, I mean, I read part of this from the Old Colony Planning and the traffic report and everything, and it says, what I read, I think, is, the average speed, 85% is 43 miles an hour, so they're going over the speed limit anyway. But when you get on one end of Hancock, almost near the end, going on to Rockland, there's, it's 25 miles an hour. There's a posted sign. And when you get to the other end, down near,
Rockland Street.
Chestnut, isn't
Chestnut.
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 And another one that's 25. And in the middle, it's 40 miles an hour.
And it's 20 by the intersection, Chestnut and Hancock.
Yeah, and when you get on, Rockland,
You pick up
it's
speed.
like 30 or 35.
Well, town speed limit is 30 miles an hour across all the roads across the town,
Yeah,
unless that's
it's-
otherwise posted.
Right, otherwise posted, but I mean, if we can only make it 25, I think people would be out of their minds. But I'd like to see, and I heard what Rick said about having input, but that's only to get to 25 miles an hour, right, Rick?
That's correct,
So
yes,
they-
yes, yeah. And I know it's, and again, I certainly don't disagree with the concern of the resident that brought it to my attention, ultimately the board's attention. But once again, the guidelines that the state puts forth, the average speed is really the determinant in terms of whether or not a speed limit is, and I'm obviously paraphrasing all of the potential requirements, but crash data, average speeds, all that has to comply with.
But when you see signs that say, from this end to this end is 40 miles an hour, I mean, the signs are there to do 40 miles an hour. And some people do 50,
Sure.
some do 43, some do less, I'm sure. But so those signs have just always been there, and posted as 40 from way back, or?
That is, yeah, at some point in time, the town, through the Department of Transportation, would have had to establish those speed limits. I know, it seems counterintuitive. I agree with you, seems counterintuitive. So,
I just can't see how that's not a thickly settled area yet.
yeah. Well,
mean,
again,
I
as
mean-
thickly settled, I'm sorry, you said how
I
it's,
can't believe it's not,
Yeah.
at this point.
well, again, thickly settled is what allows you to, us
Would
to
be able to
pursue
make
the
it 30, which would be
special
perfect for that
spe-
street.
yeah.
Well, I think that the rules were put in place in 1971, long before any of these developments.
Right.
A lot of these developments on the
So it's
site.
farmland up there.
It was awful.
I mean, you got 1.5 miles at 40 miles an hour, .16 at 25, .18 at 35, .06 at 25. I mean, I just can't believe that there's not more tickets given out there, because, you know, and it's confusing, and I drove down that street today, looking at all the signs, not today, I'm sorry, Sunday, and, I was going 40, a little under 40. No, I was going 40,
What were you
He
going?
said it, not me.
I didn't go over 40.
What were you going to
and-
say?
And I thought I was going fast. I thought 35 would not be bad to lower to, in that neck of the woods, and I think we should do what it takes to get that done. You know, that's personally, I mean.
Well, I agree with you, but Rick's saying that
Yeah,
we-
the state guidelines are the state guidelines. Now, whether or not there's an opportunity to, you know, to get a special act of the legislature, certainly we can request from our state senator and state rep assistance with that. But the only mechanisms available through the Mass Department of Transportation are the two that you see in front of you. And that's the problem with only having the option of, I know, a special speed zone of 25 miles per hour is, that's not appropriate either. And so I certainly agree with the concern. You know, and I know that the police department has done more enforcement up there over time and put up these radar boards, and, you know, the chief said he's more than willing to do that more aggressively, but ultimately, we know that doesn't solve this issue, because you can't have our police department on one street indefinitely. I mean, so.
But can we have the Mass DOT in, Rick, and discuss about, like, thickly settled, whether the area is now considered thickly settled, like Ken said, it went back to 71.
Well, it is considered thickly settled. That's why you have the opportunity and to.
Lower to 25,
Yeah, to
which
clear
would
a
drive
special
people
safety zone.
right
Insane.
through the roof.
I came down 139 and took a right onto Hancock Street, okay? I'm going down 139, the speed limit's 40 miles an hour. You get on Hancock Street, it's a completely different, it's Route 139 versus a street. It's ridiculous. the
It's
same
a
mile an hour.
residential street,
It is,
yeah.
it is, it's not 139, and people, I realize that people, everybody complains about the speed on their street, and I understand that. I actually, my first wife lived on Hancock Street, 590, and, you know, we lost a dog out front, you know, not because people were speeding, but it's just, it's busy street.
Yeah.
It is, you know, and people, and being busy is not the issue, it's the speed on that street, it really is, so it's tough.
If the board wishes, I'm happy to contact our legislators to see if they can find some other solution, even if it's,
And we could take the
Special act.
signs, the speed limit signs down, and put up, I'm just saying.
I know where you're
But
going.
then it's not, it go with no signs, then it's a town speed limit, 30 miles an hour, but it would not be enforceable in court because
It's already on the books
Yeah.
before.
already the book
Yeah.
is 40.
right. And again, in fairness, you know, the public doesn't know and wouldn't know that the cities and towns don't have the independent ability just to determine what their speed limits are. It's frustrating for us, it's frustrating for the public. And of course, this is something that spans a lot of issues in cities and towns, how much control the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has over the operations of all of us. So it is frustrating. But I'm happy to contact our legislators if you'd like and explain the issue and see if they can find another option, even if it's as severe as a special act of the legislature. I don't know, we could at least take their advice and input and,
Well, this is on like, and we have it as a discussion,
yeah.
and that's all it is, we're not voting on anything, so I would ask the chairman to ask you to do that, Rick. So.
More than, that's fine, yeah.
Because I think we should contact whoever we can, whether it be the state, whether it be our legislatures.
Yeah.
Well, like say, the traffic engineers at Old Colony Planning Council, and I don't know, the Department of Transportation would be finding a mechanism for us to override their regulations short of what's already on the books, so.
Coming down the hill, going 40 miles an hour, it's gonna be tough to put a roundabout down there. Unless we put a ramp to go over it, make it.
I mean, one of the things, Rick, that you said you'd recommend a public hearing, which time residents of Hancock Street, you know, being invited to express her opinion, the special speed zone. I don't think that special speed zone, like we said, is 25. And I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some of them would, but
And that was my concern too. I mean, I think you'd need input from public safety departments and, you know, this specific concern has been raised by one resident. We know that the concern goes beyond that one resident, but, you know, as you know, there's a fairly large population of residents up there, you know, off Hancock Street that use that multiple times every day, and, you know, it's their issue too. So,
well, let's keep it as an open agenda item, I think.
I will address the board in an email to the town management to pursue this.
Okay.
I'd like to move on to the town manager report, please.
yes.
Hold on, I have to get through all these pages.
Yeah,
Going.
22 of them.
I'm trying to get to it myself. Yeah.
See, Rick had to get there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chairman made us work this week, if you look at the length of the update.
Excuse me.
Starting with the dog park that's been in the works for some time. The Stanton Foundation, which is I guess you'd say the authority in terms of how we have to go about the process, as they are the grant authority, for which we've applied for through them for the grant. And the first phase is complete. The second phase, currently, we're in that phase now in terms of submitting and responding to their concerns and questions about the very first complaint, submission. And so we're into more of the detailed work. There is a landscape architect at work that has been funded by the Stanton Foundation after the first phase of the application process. And currently, the second phase requires much more detail, in terms of the, again, drainage, grading, et cetera. And that currently has been submitted back to them after the landscape architect has worked to fulfill their next requirements. And currently, we're waiting. There are other communities that started this process a year ahead of us, and they're still also waiting for final grant. So this is a long process. As you know, it's a private foundation, and we have to abide by their requirements for the purposes of getting a grant. So I don't know, Dory, do you have any other specific points to make with regard to this?
That sums it up, and exactly, it's almost like one submittal prompts, further questions and further details. So the landscape architect is currently, after the second panel review, finishing that this week, submit it to Stanton Foundation for a third panel review, and we'll see where we stand there. We'll be that much closer.
People say government moves slowly, but in this case,
It's
Private.
moves slowly,
yeah.
but I will tell you,
Nonprofit.
it's tough to give up $100,000 from.
Yeah, I mean, they have
And we're gonna get it, they've given us some already, so.
Yeah, right, so they've reserved the funding pending their satisfaction with.
Yeah.
It also funds a couple years of upkeep for the park too.
It's
once-
Yeah.
2 years, I believe.
Yeah, because that's it, they want us to succeed, and they've, like you said, they've given us already 10%, plus the committee themselves have raised 10%, 17,000. So everybody's doing their part in it, and it's just they are particular, as they should be. And I think things are moving along, though. Everybody's, doing their part, and we should be hearing shortly after the third submission.
Okay.
The second issue that had come up previously was the situation with our police station siding, which is an area has begun to essentially fall off the building. Building commissioner had advised us that at the time of the siding that's currently there was not up to code even at the time it was installed. We have provided some of the core documents to Coltman and Page, KP Law, for them to advise us in terms of whether we have any legal recourse towards either the contractor or the design professional who signed off on it. We have been advised that there may be some recourse against the general contractor with regard to the installation. So we do have to provide a few other additional documents to KP Law based upon their consideration of who indeed may be in the line of liability this 10 years after the installation. So that's continuing to go forward. In the meantime, the building commissioner is not incredibly concerned about this winter, but advises that next spring, we should think about dealing with this at the next town meeting, even if, we're able to recoup some funding after that, which obviously we want to and will pursue. He's concerned about going through another year, though, without repairing the building. Unfortunately, it's not just one section. You have an entire building whose siding was not built to code 10 years ago. So this is really a situation where we have to look at the entire building.
Any questions? Next.
Yes. Solid waste, well, essentially the recycling costs. They previously notified the board that the former, I guess you'd say, agreement is updated because to pass through per ton the cost of recycling. Wasn't that long ago where we were getting paid for recyclables, and then recyclables were at least a break even. Well, now it's actually costs as much or more to dispose of recycling than regular residential trash. The initial estimates were approximately $225,000 over and above what's currently budgeted. And that was based upon an $82.50 cost per ton for recyclables. That has remained steady in both July and August, so we'll continue to track that. We hope that that cost per ton will decrease at some point, but we're not sure at this point. So our current estimates in terms of our overage that we need to address the town meeting at the end of the year, special town meeting, remains the same at this time.
What's the rate for trash?
The rate for trash is, right now, it's the same. It's the same. So, again, the problem's gonna become to the extent that recyclables can't take up a certain percentage of landfill space, because there's also state regulations on what you can put in landfills. As you can understand that. So, again, we hope the 8250 will begin to drop.
That trash doesn't go to a landfill, doesn't it go to an incinerator?
I think it's not necessarily all one place. I think it's a matter of where Republic Waste Services gets their best bang for the buck in different locations throughout the year.
Is that
And
the
there's-
same
and
rate? I'm sorry.
I'm
Rick.
no, go ahead.
Is that the same rate with other companies besides Republic? It's just kind of a market?
Yes, and we are monitoring that. The health agent is reviewing that on a monthly basis. And unfortunately, one of the thoughts that, that we had, that we all have as well, is there another company that can provide a more economical cost for the labor, and as far as, and the physical pickup of trash, but that's all governed by state regulations in terms of prevailing wages. So whether it's Republic or any other commercial hauler, you're still paying the same for labor because of prevailing wages. So there's not a lot of movement in terms of, we expect that we'll be going out to bid within a year or two at the most. But you got to realize, everybody has to realize that there's not a lot of leeway in terms of what any contractor can provide based upon the regulations we're working within. So the cost of disposal is the biggest problem at the moment, and it's hitting everybody, not just Abington. And part of the problem was this was an issue that came to us after the annual town meeting, so we really couldn't plan for it in the current budget. So again, we'll have to deal with it at the end of the fiscal year, end of the year transfer.
Maybe it won't snow this year.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
Pray.
we're planning on that, yeah.
Good.
That would be, we actually don't talk like that, because we know we're gonna jinx ourselves if we start talking about
Oh, your
that.
fault.
It never helps, but we, you know,
All right.
I had asked Rick to actually speak to this, because as my prior role in the Board of Health, I've been staying involved with South Shore recycling. And this is affecting a lot of South Shore communities, and it's a heavy impact, because there was a quite nice differential between what the trash was and recycling was, when recycling was abundant everywhere they could get it. But as now, we find less and less ways to dispose of glass and plastics and all of that stuff. It's really hampering the South Shore communities and the North Shore communities and the Western communities. Everyone's dealing with the same issue. So I just thought it was important that you all know this is gonna be an impact. I don't see it going away anytime soon, given the fact of where we're going with the issue of recycling. So it's gonna be, and I just saw the money start to cling, and I was concerned about the clinging. So it definitely affects us more than I wanted to know. So I just thought that was important. Any other questions on recycling and trash? If not, if we can go on to number 4, please, Rick.
yes, the Glenowitz Way underground utilities. I'm sure everybody recalls when this was raised last year. And we did, upon the advice of National Grid, we did set some money aside at last town meeting. Unfortunately, those not accurate estimates. And I think as people have come to realize that was probably about 10% of what the entire cost will be of doing underground utilities up and down all the poles on Glenowitz Way and wires for all the different utilities that utilize those. However, the school building committee has discussed this issue, and with the help of the project manager, has gotten some input from civil engineer to try and do a more thorough, provide a more thorough cost estimate of what it will take to actually put them all underground. That's in the $500,000 to $600,000 range for all the utilities, all underground. And it would probably, and it would have to be actually designed. It's not simply a matter of dig up the road and run wires under the road. So it's actually a design process, as well as it's design, contract, sign off by engineers. It's not simple. But the building committee has discussed it, and the school building committee, and they're prepared to build that in or save that amount of funding from the contingency, so that people would not, so there wouldn't be an additional cost to the taxpayer if that's, the caveat is that that was not part of the initial design of the building or scope of that project, and at some point, the school building committee will be looking for the support from both the school committee and the Board of Selectmen, if indeed both executive boards believe that that's a priority, and priority enough for the town to be spending that kind of money. It's the other option, obviously, would be for the town to, at the next town meeting, go through, vote to issue a bond for that project. That being said, we'd be paying debt service anyway, so whether it's, saved and expended from the contingency of the school building project, or, a 15, 20-year bond for that project. Either way, it's going to be impacting the taxpayers essentially in the same way. So, like I said, at some point, you will likely be having to consider to what extent you believe this cost is a priority for that particular project. Not exactly knowing what the timetable is, because initially the question had to do with whether or not this was something that could be accomplished before the final paving of Glenowitz Way, and that's simply not going to be possible at this time. The Glenowitz Way will be, final paving would be in the spring anyway, well before this project could be completed, designed and completed. So, I'm sorry, Bob.
Go ahead, no.
No, I said the next substantive communication on this, other than any updates that we get in the meantime, but would probably be a request from the building committee for a discussion by the Board of Selectmen and school committees for their input in either support or determination that it's not enough of a priority, that, and the funds shouldn't be expended at all, so that's.
I had asked for this to be put on the agenda. My concern was that we were gonna pave the road and then dig it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just don't know if I wanna, I just wanted to see where we were gonna be if the digging up wasn't gonna take place for 5 years. That's different than, as I've said to you before, I've been in many towns where you have a street paved and the next day the guys are out there digging up the water holes and manhole covers. So I just didn't want to have that happen.
And that has been, you know, as you know, one of the concerns and considerations is the timetable. When we thought, you know, both the DPW, the town, and members of the school building committee, that this was going to be a much less of a scope and cost, that was different. But unfortunately, that's not where we are today.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm not an engineer, but possibly they can, but I slept at a Holiday Inn Express normally. I'm not an engineer, but possibly the property we own on Glenowitz Way, they could bring it down along that rather than tearing the road up. That's just obviously, you know, a thought.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, Ken, and to what extent that becomes an option. But, you know, again, that has to be designed, obviously, because, you know, there may be other potential options. So it's more intricate than we had hoped.
Thank you. Next.
And needless to say, we're not thrilled with the input we got from National Grid initially either, so.
Well, I'm surprised, I'm not gonna say disappointed, but I'm surprised that the school building committee didn't think about that. But to be honest with you, you know, I didn't notice these poles until after the nice new poles went up, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
shoot, you know, so. Just kinda surprised, that's all.
What stuck out to me is when they put the nice new electric sign up and then the pole stays right there in front of it.
With the heating pole next to it.
Yeah, yeah.
New England Art Building.
Yes, there was some interest, and Bob asked me to provide as much of an update as I could on this. And attached to your packet is the zoning board of appeals permit with regard to this, which really addressed parking. Is that was, right from the get-go, that was an issue on that particular site, would there be enough parking? So the special permit by the ZBA addresses that. And the planning board has recently issued their site plan approval, which does, in light of certain things like, for instance, the availability of water, the intended expansion of the Myers Ave pump station, those are issues that I know that were considered. So the planning board has, after their hearing process, issued their site plan approval, and again, where they had to consider all those concerns regarding utilities, in light of the ZBA decision, parking, et cetera. So how long this is gonna take to proceed, I don't know that.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, just a comment, 110 units, 110 parking spaces. So, this must be a single-person community. That's all I got.
Thanks. Anything else? Last one, this one was Route 18 update.
Yes, I was able to get this the end of last week from Mass DOT specifically, and in terms of the current status, there unfortunately isn't a tremendous amount of information in terms of what's coming up in the near future. I think you see at the bottom, the month ahead, you know, the utility relocation, obviously, most of this is still in Weymouth. The widening of the roadway, stage one, the bridge demolition, reconstruction. That's what's coming ahead. I think the update provided by Mass DOT, I think, is kind of a helpful background and reminder, though, in terms of, you know, what the project is all about, the cost, the project scope. It's easy, especially where, again, it's Mass DOT and not the town of Abington, the town of Weymouth, to not necessarily either remember or have known initially what this entire project was all about. and its full scope. So unfortunately, the contact that we have at DOT wasn't able to be more specific just yet in terms of what the so-called month look ahead consists of. And historically, we've tried to provide any substantive updates to the business council for their distribution to local businesses. Obviously, the businesses in North Abington are, and Route 18 are much more impacted than others in the community, but that's, again, we try to provide these updates that we get. Usually they're not as formal as this, and a lot of times they come through the Department of Public Works. So if there are specific questions either tonight or in the coming days or weeks you'd like us to pose to Mass DOT, please do, and we'll make sure we pass
Yeah,
it on.
Rick, will you do me a favor? Will you see if you can find out, and I know this probably isn't gonna happen for a while, but the traffic light on 139 and 18, especially taking it, they haven't changed that to take a left yet, you know, to give that green arrow. And with all the construction and all the traffic that's building on Route 18 right now, especially early in the morning, and I mean, it's going into Weymouth is awful. It's terrible.
You betcha.
And that, you know, turn left on that arrow, I don't know how much it will help, but it
Can't hurt.
But it can't, because a lot of people are still going through that light.
After it turns
You know,
red.
after it turns red, yellow, they're stuck in the middle of the,
Intersections.
it's awful. I mean, they did a great job on 18 and 123, where you can, you know, coming down 18, you can take a left to go on to, you know, either Hancock or you know, whatever, but whatever you can do on that and get if you can, you know,
Well, I'm sure
get
there's
a
a,
timeline on it. It's just,
Yeah.
and I think they need to, and if they don't think, but I think they need to come and look at how much traffic, like you say, Bob, is there in the morning. I mean,
nuts.
my wife leaves early to go to Brighton because there's so much traffic.
Can we send a letter from our board asking them to expedite that and try to make it part of it first?
well, yeah, I think that's helpful. I think in the short term, I will request specifics on what the design is for that intersection in terms of signalization, and what the timetable is, and then certainly, we can prepare a letter from.
They did tell us
the
it was
board.
gonna
I do recall Joe Shea
My understanding
bringing that up when
is-
DOT was
And
here, and they did say they would address that,
Because
so.
when you're on 18 and you're going down towards Bridgewater, you know, you can take a left, and when you come the other way, you can take the right. It's one place where you can't take that left, and I think that's awful, so.
We'll confirm the design, though, so there's no question about it. The timeline,
Right.
well, we can only take what they give us, but hopefully it'll be reasonably on time with the current schedule for the project.
I don't know about you other folks, but I signed up for updates, and I'm not receiving any.
Yeah, me too. I signed up for,
They encouraged,
Months
at the
ago.
public meeting, they encouraged people to sign up for updates, so everybody in the crowd, we put it on the website.
Yeah, it even says it
And-
here.
And I've received one uptate, I think, since I signed up with.
that's one more than I got.
Yeah, that was at the beginning, so, and I will tell you that, someone on the Abington Conservation Commission says he gets updates like probably 2 times a week, but that's for conservation issues pertaining to the project. So they're really good about those issues, you know, the wetlands and all those pools they're putting all over the place, you know.
Well, that's the thing that, right up before Sullivan Tire, they went into that rock quarry and made a overage, a drainage for the road.
There's quite a lot of them if you look too down.
But, I mean, up by South Weymouth Bank, they did, they went in there deep. I was shocked how far they went in their side lot between their mortgage building and the bank building. But down by Sullivan Tire, they actually went into that bedrock and created a drain, which was full of water at the last rainstorm. It was like a lake. It wasn't like a puddle, it was a lake. And every single one of them up the road. And as you notice that just beyond, or just before the intersection of 58 and 18, they have taken that right lane going north, pretty much have, all the land taking has taken place. They've made the lane there, basically. They've already put in crushed stone. They took all the islands out, that poor duplex right in the middle of the street, right after the intersection next to the the Storeway building literally is 12 feet from the front door to the sidewalk to that new road
Uncle
there.
Charlie's is pretty close too.
Uncle Charlie's lost their temporary sign.
Yeah, they
They
did.
put it to the side of the building.
Well, that's way, we don't care about that.
No.
Well, like Ken said,
Yeah.
you know, the public outreach, they're saying right here that, you know, a website has been established for Route 18 widening project, and emails are sent to everyone that has signed up for notifications related to the project, and
We're not getting the emails.
so you can check on it.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's what Ken wanted anyway, so.
Anything else, Rick?
Yeah, most of the other brief updates are actually good news, which I know is not something we get a lot of in municipal government. The first is the Riley track, field track is now actively in the process of being resurfaced, as was, money was appropriated through the CPA at town meeting for that purpose. And the entire process will take approximately 2 weeks from this past weekend, depending on weather. But I don't need to get in the particulars, but for the purposes of public consumption, we've about 2 weeks, that should be ready for the public again.
Is there a curing period?
I'm sorry?
Does it have to cure or anything like that, or once they're done, you can?
Yeah, yes, it's 2 weeks and it's done. Weather permitting. The monument, the Excedra Monument, which at the Rotary out here, the Revolutionary War Monument, has been completed. I'm sure you all know that from coming and going, but for others who may not be down here that often, it has been paid for through the money that was appropriated at town meeting for this purpose. We are still working through our insurance company and the court to provide, hopefully get full reimbursement or restitution for that project. Was about a $38,000 full cost. The initial insurance payment to us was about, $19,000?
Yeah.
So there's funds there to be collected, again, either through our insurer or through the perpetrator, so to speak. We're hoping that our insurance company will do that, and then if they wish to subrogate against the gentleman who caused that problem, and make it their problem. Their initial, the insurance company's initial estimate to us was a good faith estimate. On the other hand, it simply didn't pay for. That was before there were any bids or for the purposes of reconstructing that. That was just from an initial assessment. So again, we hope that our insurer will ultimately provide the balance that would ultimately become free cash, but at least it would be returned to the town. And the Green Communities Grant, I know this seems to go back quite a while, but the designation grant, which is the initial grant that we're eligible for, having become a green community, but that would be a year ago at the town meeting, that didn't declare it, but the zoning and changes that were necessary to become a green community were about 2 years old now. About $165,000 is the conservation grant, and that is to fund energy conservation measures. And our initial project has to do with upgrading the HVAC systems in the town hall and library, making them more cost and energy efficient. The other caveat is the town last year did appropriate funds exactly for this purpose while our grant was pending. We certainly at that time didn't know whether or not we were going to be successful. Ultimately, we have been. So we will be able to use these grant funds in lieu of funds that were already appropriated at town meeting. Once that project is completely, where the funds are expended and the accounting and bookkeeping is closed out, we'll then be eligible for participate in other competitive grants. So, and I have to be complimentary. Dory was on the front lines of obtaining this grant, as well as working to find the appropriate means to get this project approved. The paperwork has been, only the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can make paperwork more complicated. So, so hopefully the timetable would be before this winter hits full force, hopefully these systems will be upgraded. It has been a problem in both the town hall and library over the last 2 years in terms of the functionality of both buildings. They're both original systems that are now, 20-plus years old. Another piece of good news is that we were able to obtain a $30,000 earmark to replace our traffic education radar signs, which we all know of as speed radar boards that you see around town from here to there.
Ones you see on Hancock
I saw,
Street?
I saw
Well,
Glenwood as well.
yes, and they're going
I
to
got
be
the
up
high
there.
last week.
They're going to be up there quite a bit more, too, in the next few weeks. Unfortunately, there's only 2 of them currently, so even though these are intended to replace those, I suspect that the chief is going to want to at least keep the older ones as long as they're possibly functional. But there's a cost to maintain those too, and whether at some point it just doesn't become cost effective, I'm sure. So, but this was an earmark that we were able to achieve during the state budget process, and hopefully we're just executed the state contracts for them to download the money to us for expenditure. And 2 other things. I know a lot of you are aware of the effort to plan, survey and plan our playing fields in town and other recreational fields. And the initial meeting of the group to do that is October 22nd, in case any someone on the board wishes to participate, whether it's just to stay informed or involved, or if, somebody wishes to be a permanent member of that group, so.
When is our next meeting?
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, schedule be for the 24th? 22nd, okay. That's a very good point. We don't want to,
Because
we will see what we can do. to
The
make
reason
sure-
I asked is because they had
Yeah.
previously scheduled a meeting, and somebody had called me and told me about it, and I
Okay.
said, geez, I'd really like to be there. I said, there could be other selectmen, maybe we could work on rescheduling it. And then they reschedule it,
All right,
it's
well,
another day that we have a meeting.
We'll see what we can do, but that's a good point.
Can you keep me updated, because I want to make sure I'm there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And the last thing I have is the sewer bed solar proposal we have. That project, it's just getting out of the blocks now, primarily because the company that has been talking to us about this, excited about the potential project on one hand. On the other hand, there's a process that they have to do to get, potential investors lined up, et cetera. Now, the company we've been working with has, they've done a site walk with the Conservation Commission to determine what requirements they would have to try to maximize the footprint. Currently, the only thing that could be counted on is what you see, the open space. However, in order for the project to be maximized, would require the approval of the Board of Selectmen for some clearing of trees to make that to make it a profitable project. The other thing to be aware of is that, and I'm sorry, the proponent is currently, will be going about getting an overlay view for what they're proposing, so the Board of Selectmen can review that and determine to what extent that's acceptable, or if there's other suggestions. Obviously, the biggest concern is the encroachment on potential encroachment on residences in the area, and what buffer or buffers would be suitable. The other thing we've had to make clear is, even though we have a proponent who's approached us some time ago, this is still a project that has to be bid. Yeah, this isn't, we just can't hand stuff to contractors. It gets us all in trouble. The gentleman who we have been working with, keep in mind, is somebody who has been involved and was involved with advising the SAGE committee. This goes back about, I don't know, 7, 8+ years. So it was a gentleman that the old SAGE committee had been working with on a number of projects for input and advice. So we're confident that, that we're certainly getting advice, input, and planning from good sources. On the other hand, like I said, this project would have to be bid ultimately. But it seems like it's been forever, but there's finally some movement in the right direction here. This was originally thought of potentially on the grounds of Griffin's Dairy. Some of you will recall that there was a master plan done by Old Colony Planning Council at the request of the Board of Selectmen. This is probably 4 years ago now, and one of the components that was laid out as a possibility was a solar component on the end that almost abutted Monroe Street. Bellows Circle, okay, and of course, right across the street is essentially the sewer bed, so that's why the focus changed from one location to the other when it was reviewed by people with more expertise. So in some ways, this has been on the drawing board for, several years now. The location has shifted. And that's all I have.
Jory, would it be possible to put the DOT update on our website? I know it's not prolific with
Yes.
information, but at least it's something more than we have now.
And in this conversation tonight, I think we will probably attempt to get somebody from DOT. I think just speak to the Board of Selectmen if we can. That might be helpful and good for the public, too.
That will be in my
Can't
request.
guarantee that'll happen, but we will attempt to get,
All we can do is request.
yeah. No.
Yeah, that meeting for the Park and Rec playing fields discussion, where's that, right in Town Hall?
The location, I'm
Yeah,
not sure of.
Town Hall,
Yeah, but again, we've got
currently
to
at Town Hall on the 22nd.
see if we can either address the time or the date, so that, obviously, there's a lot of interest. I know it's been a concern for many years, so.
Would the board consider moving our meeting to the 23rd so that we could just make that happen? Tuesday, the 23rd?
I would be okay with Tuesday, the 23rd.
Okay. So I think we need to ask them to move that meeting to a different date for the board members that'd like to attend to be there. I'd like to pursue that if possible.
23rd?
We'll move on.
I'll ask them to,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fine
and maybe
with me.
we can be helpful in finding a new date.
If
Instead of,
possible, because I'd like the board members who are interested to attend to be able to attend.
yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you suggest, I'm sorry, I don't make sure I don't have this backwards. You suggested that we interact with the group and see if they can change their date.
I would like to ask them if
Okay.
they could change the
We
date,
will do that.
please and thank you,
Thank you.
because I'd like the board to be able to attend if
Sure.
they wanted.
If not, could we change our meeting to the 23rd?
That's what I was proposing.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, okay, I'm
Well,
sorry.
Let us work
I'm
on the
confused.
first
I wanted to
question.
ask them first if they could do, if not, I will propose that we move ours.
Okay.
If it be, yeah, if it.
So that
if
that you can go.
it becomes an issue,
That Jim
then
can go if he
we'll
wants to go.
inform the board and,
I don't want to go, I know someone who wants to go, I just want to make sure he gets the information.
Okay.
excellent.
Motion?
Motion for what?
Motion to adjourn.
Somebody's
Me?
calling somebody.
You have due?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the agenda?
That's not me.
Yes, surplus land sale, how's that coming? 20 pieces of land,
Yeah,
surplus
that's,
land.
we'll have to double check. I know Sonia was reviewing specific options, the treasurer collector for those, and we'll
Okay, how about,
provide you an update.
would it be possible to get, well, let me ask this question first. How is the sale of the Ames Knoll property to DCR going? Is that,
That has been a problem because the heirs to the property have to be tracked down and they're in Eastern Europe. And in order for that to be completed, the heirs have to sign off on the transfer of property.
so it's
So
not being held up by DCR?
No, not at all. DCR, as you know, has been interested in this. They're frustrated too. And for those who forget this question, within Ames Knoll, there's a piece of property that was privately owned that the town took in tax title. At this point, a couple of years, well, actually, we attempted to take in tax title in lieu of foreclosure. Unfortunately, the owner of the property is long since the so-called Polarecki property. Some of you might know it that way. And in order to have it transferred in lieu of taxes, the heirs have to sign off on it, and the heirs have been unable to be located. And the last we've been told by council, they're in Eastern Europe, and so. DCR is still interested in the property, that's not a question, it's a matter of, our legal ability to actually make finalize a transfer.
I'd like to get DCR in here at some point, not because they're dragging their feet on this, but also now that we have an Ames Noble committee, I think it'd be great for them. But also I have a question about the rail trail, because it still belongs to them, I believe. I don't believe the town ever actually has ownership of that.
You're correct,
And
yes.
but in Rockland, they own the rail trail. So I'd like to see if they can give it to us, sell it to us,
Yeah.
whatever.
Are you, again, I'm not familiar with Rockland's ownership or what the situation is, but
Fairly certain.
certainly.
So we have a beautiful rail trail, and it is going to connect to Griffin's Dairy at some point in the sewer beds. But I think it'd be great for us to have ownership of that. There's also plans on the Community Preservation Committee. One of the suggested uses for some of that funds for next year, I think it's got to call Turntable Park, or at the very beginning, where the rail trail starts. There's a neat old, they found it and covered, and it's on property that DCR owns, but it's in the grass, it's been grown over, but Weymouth has one, and it's where the trains used to turn to go to different stations, and it's really a neat thing, and Whitman redid it, and it came out nice, so I'd like to see if they can give us that property too, along with the rail trail. So at some point, I'd like to get them, and I'm sure that the new Ames Knoll, would welcome the opportunity to talk to them and ask them questions. Also, maybe on the next agenda, we can get a landfill update. I know that no news is good news, but
Yeah.
again,
Right.
we're talking about all the solar, and that was one of the possible uses, and that would be a big money maker for the town if we could put a solar park.
The issue we've had in the past is that it is not a closed landfill, it's not a lined closed landfill, it's still, it's capped, but it's not, it's still,
Partially.
it's partially capped. And it is monitored, we get the reports every month.
Every month.
There's absolutely, the reports have been, positive, for several years now.
But at some point,
Whether or not a solar-
isn't it
Sorry,
closed once, I mean, this isn't gonna be like this forever,
Right, but
right?
it's only partially capped,
Right.
so,
That's what we're hoping for, no action from the DEP.
Right.
That we don't need to cap it. Cap it. That's the goal with the testing that's coming back monthly is clean. That may be exactly what will happen.
Right,
So
'cause-
it's kind of no news is good news.
because a
From them.
multi-million-dollar capping of the remainder of that landfill obviously is a.
I understand that completely, but I thought that one of the options was after they said, okay, you're all set, one of the options to talk about a park at one point there in the front of the back, one of the options was a solar field. And once we get the okay, we could never get the okay from them, we could, so I don't know if it's better to just ask our engineer how it's going, or if he sees anything in the future or not, but I don't know, maybe just leave it alone, and, let it.
That's,
That was,
it's
yeah.
kind of a
If I don't catch something tonight, I
double-edged
don't know
sword,
what the heck
yeah.
else belongs here. And update on our municipal electric bill aggregation, is that what it's
Yes.
called?
Yes, the aggregation program that
Is it
began.
October 1st that the rates went back up
Yes,
in National Grid?
The bid, there's 14 communities that in this region that participate in a group bid. Now, this has only been allowed by the state for a few years now, and the goal is to, even out rates over the course of an entire year. The recent, and we're literally talking within the last couple of days now, that this has been put out to bid a few times now, to trying to take advantage of the particular season and the dynamics. However, the various bids they're so close to the national grid at the moment that it's completely unnecessary at this point for the town to maintain the program for this year. It's because they're so close. So for people to be opting in to a program that's not going to provide any significant difference, I mean, it would be minimal. The hope is that, going into next year, because of some of the dynamics with upgrading of certain energy plants, et cetera, that it'll be much more advantageous as it was this past year. But as of right now, there's no significant or advantage at all to not just sticking with the National Grid default rate.
Right, but we switched everybody in town from National Grid to this.
Well, everybody will be defaulted back to National Grid. They don't have to do anything about it. It's just gonna happen.
Okay, so this
And there will be,
program,
and there will be a notice going out to all who have participated in the aggregation program. There will be a notice going out to all of them, explaining this
so it's basically on hiatus until
for a
6 months
year.
from now when they do the, or 5 months from now when they
March,
decide.
Well, actually, it'll probably be a full year before, it's, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, again, this is,
Because I could have sworn that guy stood up there and said, basically guaranteed that in this year, his rates would be cheaper.
yeah, well,
Fall.
but they're not, again, not, it's negligible.
Well, for the first 6 months, they were a lot cheaper.
And again, this is another point, I'm happy to have them come in at some point and speak to the Board of Selectmen. I think it's, because we have had a lot of calls in our office too, with regard to that.
So when people get their next statement, it will show up as National Grid as their
Yes.
carrier, supplier. Okay. What else do I have? Surplus School Building Committee, do we have any update from that committee?
The surplus school committee is meeting tomorrow night. I'm hoping that they'll have their final opinion probably at our meeting in November.
And I think that I want to commend Mr. Connolly. We had a meet and greet with the residents of the town again this Saturday, and we were lucky enough to have John Stone, the DPW chief, there, and we went over some things, and I know that he had some concerns, as I think I do now, and probably Jim does now, about his staffing
Yes.
next year, because, I mean, he's gonna take over the grounds up here. He's probably gonna be taking over Griffin's Dairy, I would think, amongst other things.
Yeah, that was mentioned.
And he mentioned
Lot of work.
about, was it the new floodplain?
Yeah, the
That requires a
MS4
lot-
requirements.
A lot of work,
Right.
which was
A lot of paperwork.
basically another unfunded
Oh,
mandate from the state.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So, I just
Just
want,
add it to the list.
when you're developing the budget, I just hope that
Yes.
you will keep that in mind.
Yeah, with regard to that, though, two things to be aware of is that later this week, date to be confirmed, we are meeting, John, me, and the school administration with regard to the requirements of the new school's maintenance and what the best way to approach that. It may not be with DPW personnel, it might be something that the school contracts for. That's something where we'll be talking about this week, as a matter of fact. And the other piece is that the DPW has had one of their full-time staff out for over a year now. So that's a full-time position, and we're going to be able to we'll be able to staff. We've dealt with that situation.
We also lose a longtime employee to the water department, I heard.
Yes. Yeah, so those are positions that, I mean, obviously, that was already a position that filled his staff, but to the extent that he's been without a budgeted position due to a medical situation, that's come to fruition. So that'll be helpful to fill that full-time job. It's not going to be the end-all and be-all, but it's definitely, as you know, the last 4 or 5 years or so, our priority has been bringing the staffing up in our police department, and I think, I know several years ago, that was an issue with the fire department, so I think the focus has to start changing a little bit now that we've hit some of those other goals.
Anything else,
That's all I have.
Tom?
No, I'm good.
Tim?
All set.
Jim?
Well, good.
Motion?
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second. All in favor? Anything further to say? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, everyone.